What if Mary's most important message came not in words, but through silence? Have you ever considered that? In a world where everything screams, where the news, social media, and even our own worries seem to compete for space in our minds, imagining that God, through Mary, might choose silence as a way to speak to us is intriguing, to say the least. But what if, precisely therein lies the key to understanding one of the greatest spiritual mysteries of our time? Have you ever been there? That moment when you expect a clear answer, a clear sign, a direct confirmation. But what comes is only emptiness, a deep silence that even feels uncomfortable. It's in this pause, in this wordless space, that many give up, thinking nothing is happening. But what if, in fact, the silence is proof that something much bigger is brewing behind the scenes of your life? What you're about to discover may surprise you, because when we talk about Medjugorje, one of the most remarkable places of Marian apparitions in the world, there's something few people talk about: the 7 unrevealed messages. These messages, according to the visionaries, contain guidance and warnings for humanity, but remain hidden until the right time. And what's most striking is that, while the content isn't revealed, Mary continues to appear, continues to call, but often not with long speeches or detailed instructions, but with a look, a gesture, a silence. Perhaps this silence is more than the absence of sound. Perhaps it's a call for us to slow down, close our ears to the noise of the world, and open our hearts to hear what can only be heard in stillness. It's as if Mary were saying, "Stop, listen, I don't need to speak for you to understand me." And here's something powerful. In the Christian tradition, God's greatest moments of revelation have almost always been preceded by periods of silence, of waiting, of apparent inactivity. Stay with me until the end, because understanding this silence can completely change the way you approach your crises, your decisions, and even your faith. Think about it. In times of tribulation, our natural tendency is to seek quick answers, immediate solutions. But what if the true path is exactly the opposite? What if Mary's silence in Medjugorje is actually an invitation to develop patience, vigilance, and trust? Imagine yourself in the middle of a storm, not knowing where to turn. You scream for help, but hear no response. Little by little, you realize that the only way to stay afloat is to calm down, listen to your heart, and remember the guidance you received before the storm. This is how silence becomes a voice, not just any voice, but a voice that cannot be drowned out by the chaos. Many people, faced with this silence, give up on their spiritual quest. Others, however, discover that it is precisely in this silence that the greatest solace and direction are found. It is as if Mary uses this apparent nothingness to teach us to trust in the invisible, to remain steadfast even without visible proof, to walk by faith and not by sight. And when we think about the 7 unrevealed messages, it's inevitable to ask ourselves, is the current silence already part of the revelation? Could it be that, before we know what is written, we need to learn the language that only silence can teach? Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is a hidden meaning in this silence that goes beyond waiting, and that may be preparation for something that will change everything we know about faith and obedience. And perhaps this is the most challenging part of all, learning not to be terrified by the lack of immediate answers, but rather to recognize that, in silence, God's most profound work may be taking place within us. And it is precisely in this space, where nothing seems to happen, that true transformation begins to blossom. I know that talking about this can awaken different feelings in each person listening to me now. Some may feel peace, others perhaps feel restlessness. Therefore, I really want to know, how has the silence of God or Mary spoken to you? If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below with what has touched you most so far. Sharing your experience is not just a personal gesture, it strengthens this entire community that grows together, learning and supporting one another. And if this moment of reflection is moving you in any way, don't forget to like it. It may seem simple, but each like helps this message reach more people who, like you, may need to hear it today. And, of course, subscribe to the channel to continue following content like this. This is how we can keep this exchange alive, exploring together these mysteries and revelations that aren't always spoken out loud. Because, deep down, we're not just talking about Mary's messages. We're on a journey together to understand how God communicates behind the scenes in our lives. And that's where the next step in this conversation begins to unfold. Silence. For many people, it's simply the absence of sound. But in truth, within spirituality, it's sacred territory. A space where God's voice doesn't compete with the noise of the world, but echoes softly and deeply, reaching places within us that no words could touch. It's curious how, throughout Christian history, silence has always been present in the most decisive moments. Moses, before the burning bush, didn't hear a fiery speech, but a calm voice speaking between pauses. Elijah, on Mount Horeb, didn't find God in the wind, the earthquake, or the fire, but in the still whisper that came afterward. Jesus, before beginning his ministry, withdrew to the desert and remained there for 40 days, in silence and prayer. There's Something about this state of stillness that prepares us for genuine transformation. It's as if silence is the perfect setting for the hidden truth, the one we fail to perceive in our rush to surface. In today's world, silence is seen as a waste of time, but in heaven's logic, it's training, it's polishing. When Mary appears, and often says nothing, it's not because she has nothing to say, it's because she knows that the absence of words can create an even greater impact. This type of communication requires us to change our internal rhythm. It requires us to move away from the impulse to fill every space with sounds, opinions, and explanations, and enter a state of genuine listening. It's an invitation to surrender, and this invitation is demanding because it forces us to deal with our own concerns, fears, and anxieties without seeking distractions. Silence is a mirror. It reveals what we carry inside. Unfiltered. On the spiritual journey, this experience is crucial. Saints and mystics have always understood this. Teresa of Avila spoke of the prayer of stillness as a state where it's not about multiplying words, but about being present before God with an open heart. John of the Cross, in his Path of the Dark Night, describes silence as the furnace where the soul is purified, removing what is superfluous so that the essential shines. And when I think of Mary's attitude in Medjugorje, I see exactly this logic. She doesn't force, doesn't pressure, doesn't rush. She presents herself with a calm that dismantles our haste. It's as if to say, I'm here. I don't need to shout for you to notice me. And somehow, this silent way of acting leads us to pay more attention. Because when someone doesn't speak, we lean in to hear better. Our soul does the same. It leans in to capture signals that come not in the form of sound, but of presence. This silence is not empty. It is full of meaning. It carries memory, promise, hope. It is the same silence that hung over the world on the Saturday between the crucifixion and the resurrection, a gap in which it seemed nothing was happening, but where everything was being prepared for the greatest turning point in history. This is the power of silence in spirituality. It is the behind-the-scenes place, where what truly matters happens out of sight, but not far from the heart. The problem is that, to get to this place, we need to make decisions that go against the flow of modern life. We need to tune out excess stimuli, create moments of pause, and resist the temptation to fill every second with something productive. It's a mindset workout because we learn to value what can't be measured or displayed. Silence is the space where faith ceases to be theory and becomes a lived experience, and it is at this point that Mary, with her simple and firm way, becomes a teacher. By not saying everything, she teaches us that there are answers that can only be understood when our soul is still, that there are revelations that are not received through logic, but through inner listening, that there are decisions we can only make with clarity when the noise stops. And, in this process, silence ceases to be absence and becomes presence. Presence of God, acting within us, shaping, healing, preparing. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because Mary's silence is not just a spiritual gesture, it is also a divine strategy to align us with the right timing of revelations. There is wisdom hidden in this interval that can transform the way we wait, discern, and act. Comment there. That makes sense to me. In times of crisis, everything seems to intensify. Thoughts race faster, emotions surge like waves on a stormy day, and our hearts seem to beg for an immediate solution. It is in this state of urgency that most of us seek clear signs, visible evidence that we are not alone, that God is listening, that Mary is interceding. We want answers that eliminate all doubts, that bring instant security, but often, what comes is not what we expected. There is no word written in heaven, nor an audible voice telling us what to do. Instead, what arrives is a dense, almost palpable silence that, at first, may seem like absence, but is actually an invitation. This invitation is subtle and requires sensitivity to be perceived. It is a call to inner stillness, as if God and Mary were saying to us, breathe, sit down, don't make decisions in the heat of the moment, listen more carefully. Except this kind of response goes against everything we've been conditioned to do. We live in a mindset of urgency, where every problem needs to be solved now, and any delay feels like a risk. However, silence isn't delayed preparation. It's like the waiting time before a seed germinates from the outside. Nothing seems to be happening, but inside, the entire life process has already begun. The truth is that, in a crisis, our perception becomes distorted. We can mistake noise for progress and haste for efficiency. But silence, when embraced, reorganizes our vision. It takes us out of the whirlwind so we can see the landscape from a broader perspective. It is in this space of pause that important revelations emerge, not because someone shouted them, but because, without the noise, we can hear what was previously hidden. This is one of the most transformative hidden truths of spirituality, that divine answers don't always arrive at the speed we desire, but always at the time we are truly ready to receive them. Think about your own life. How many hasty decisions have you made just to get it over with, and then realized that if you had waited a little longer, you would have made much better choices? Silence in a crisis is like a patient master who teaches us the art of waiting for the right moment, and that right moment is often not when the problem disappears, but when we become capable of facing it with clarity and determination. Mary, with her serene presence, leads us precisely to this place. She doesn't offer illusory shortcuts, but a safe path, even if, to follow it, we must slow down. The challenge is that silence, in the midst of pain, can be misinterpreted. It can seem like divine indifference. It can generate a feeling of abandonment. But this is precisely where we need to change our mindset. Silence is not a sign that we have been left behind, but that we are being guided inward to a place within ourselves where God's voice does not compete with the chaos. It is in this place that we realize that many of the answers we seek have already been planted in our hearts for a long time. They just needed a little silence to blossom. When we look at stories of people who have weathered extreme moments of crisis and maintained their faith, we find a pattern. At some point, they learned to silence themselves internally in order to listen. This doesn't mean ignoring the problem or pretending nothing is happening. It means shifting our focus. Instead of spending all our energy trying to control what isn't within our control, we invest in strengthening what is within our reach: inner peace, mental clarity, and confidence in our greater purpose. This kind of attitude isn't built overnight. It's the fruit of small, daily decisions. Decisions not to respond impulsively, to create pauses in our routine, to seek moments of prayer that aren't just for speaking, but also for listening. And listening here isn't about waiting for a ready-made phrase, it's about feeling the direction in our hearts, perceiving the lightness that comes when we choose a path aligned with truth. This is a skill that Mary, in her silence, helps us develop. Now I want to delve even deeper into this topic, because understanding how to act in silence in times of crisis is not only a spiritual practice, it's also a powerful resource for any journey of transformation and real-life decisions. There's a direct connection between inner stillness and the ability to face challenges wisely. Right there, I'm on this journey too. Mary's silence in Medjugorje carries a weight that goes far beyond the absence of words. It's as if each apparition, even when not accompanied by extensive messages, were a gesture charged with hidden meaning, a living symbol. And for those who open themselves to perceive, this silence transforms into language, a language that is not heard with the ears, but felt with the soul. It's a call for us to stop seeking ready-made answers and begin cultivating the sensitivity necessary to understand what is unsaid, but which is there, present and pulsating. When we look at Christian tradition, we realize that silence has always been an element of preparation. Before great missions, God leads his chosen ones into seclusion. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before liberating the people. Jesus lived 30 years in anonymity before beginning his ministry. Paul, after his conversion, withdrew to Arabia before beginning to preach. Silence, in these cases, was not a waste of time, but the fertile ground where the mission took root. In Medjugorje, Mary's silence may be playing precisely this role, preparing, strengthening, and training hearts for what is to come. This inner preparation requires vigilance. It's not just about passively waiting, but about remaining awake, attentive. Two subtle signs. Mary, by not saying everything at once, invites us to keep our spirits alert, like someone who knows that at any moment she may receive decisive instruction. It's a state of readiness reminiscent of the parable of the wise virgins, those who kept their lamps lit, even without knowing exactly when the bridegroom would arrive. Silence, in this context, is also a test of faith. It's easy to believe when we have constant confirmation, encouraging words, and visible signs. The real challenge is to remain steadfast when everything seems quiet, when it feels like nothing is happening. It's during this interval that many become discouraged, and that's precisely why it's so important, because it reveals the depth of our trust. Silence reveals whether we are following God and Mary for what they do or for who they are. But there's still a symbolic aspect to this silence that cannot be ignored. It reminds us that not all knowledge can or should be revealed immediately. There are truths that, if received prematurely, could be misinterpreted or even lead us astray. Gradual revelation is an act of mercy. It's like a teacher who gives a student only what they are capable of understanding and applying at that moment. Mary's silence may be protecting us from information we wouldn't yet be mature enough to handle, while preparing us to receive it at the right time. And this preparation is not only spiritual, but also emotional and mental. It's as if, behind the scenes, we're being trained to face difficult times with serenity. Life puts us through small daily test setbacks, unexpected decisions, periods of waiting which, in fact, serve as exercises to strengthen our resilience. Those who learn to listen in the silence of today will be better prepared to understand tomorrow's messages. There's also a dimension of collective impact. It's not just about transforming individuals, but about creating a community mindset capable of sustaining faith even in the midst of tribulation. When an entire community learns to recognize the value of silence, it becomes more resilient to manipulation, more united in purpose, and more focused on what truly matters. This may be exactly what Mary is cultivating in Medjugorje. A vigilant people who don't depend on the noise of the world for guidance, but who find direction in the still, small voice that speaks behind every stillness. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because Mary's silence also carries a prophetic aspect, and understanding this can change the way you position yourself in the face of events yet to come. There are signs hidden in this absence of words that, when perceived, serve as a map for times of uncertainty. Comment there. That makes sense to me. The 7 unrevealed messages of Medjugorje have always aroused a mixture of fascination and unease. It's inevitable to wonder what they contain, why they were given to the visionaries, and why they remain hidden. The fact that we don't have access to the literal content of these messages doesn't mean we can't understand the spiritual weight they carry. On the contrary, the way Mary has led this entire process already gives us clues to their importance. The way she presents herself, the pace at which her revelations are made, and, above all, the constant presence of silence, indicate that the time of waiting itself is an integral part of the message. This prolonged silence is not accidental, it is intentional. It's as if each day that revelation doesn't arrive is, in itself, a lesson in patience, preparation, and vigilance. Mary could have delivered everything at once, but she didn't, and that tells us a lot. Spiritual revelations don't function like breaking news that needs to be released quickly. They follow the time of the soul's maturation. It's like planting a seed. You can't force it to bloom before it's ready, because rushing would compromise its strength. Many focus on what the messages may contain: predictions about the future, warnings about times of trouble, guidance on protecting faith in the face of drastic changes in the world. But there's a deeper layer. Perhaps the content itself isn't the only thing that matters. Perhaps the process of waiting and watching is itself a preparation for us to receive and live these messages when they come. Because there's no point in having access to a powerful revelation if we aren't spiritually aligned to understand and apply it. The history of Marian apparitions shows that this is nothing new. In Fatima, for example, part of the message was revealed years later, when the Church discerned that the people were more prepared to understand it. In Lourdes, Mary's words were simple, but their spiritual consequences continue to unfold to this day. In Medjugorje, the logic seems to be the same. It's not just about what will be said, but about the transformation we need to experience while we wait. And here comes a crucial point. Silence can be part of the message. When Mary remains silent, she invites us to observe how we react to the lack of answers. She invites us to consider whether we are seeking to deepen our faith or simply remain curious. She challenges us to cultivate patience and not depend on immediate certainties to keep walking. It's as if she were saying, if you only stand firm when you know everything, you may not be ready for what comes next. This period of non-revelation also forces us to adjust our mindset. Instead of living in anxious anticipation of when and what, we learn to focus on how we are living now. It's a powerful shift. It's not just about being prepared for the day the message arrives, but about living every day as if it were already shaping our behavior. This changes the way we make decisions, how we treat people, and how we respond to difficulties. Perhaps that's why so many pilgrims who visit report that, even without knowing the content of the 7 messages, they leave with a sense of clarity and direction. It's as if the very environment, imbued with prayer, silence, and vigilance, already conveys part of what's to come. The message may be written not on paper, but in the hearts of those willing to listen attentively and live faithfully. This is the great hidden truth that often goes unnoticed. Revelation does not begin the moment it is spoken, but the moment the heart opens to receive it. And, in this sense, the 7 messages are already acting in the world, shaping mindsets, awakening vigilance, and strengthening the faith of those who understand that today's silence can be the harbinger of an immeasurable spiritual impact tomorrow. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding this dynamic between what has not been revealed and what is already being experienced can completely change the way we interpret the role of Mary, and our own preparation for times that will demand more than ready-made answers. Right there, I'm on this journey too. Hearing Mary's silent call is much more than simply stopping to listen. It's entering a state of openness, where every part of us, mind, heart, and spirit is willing to receive something that can't be conveyed through direct words. It's like adjusting the tuning of an old radio. The sound may be full of noise, but little, by carefully turning the knob, we find the right frequency. And when it arrives, we realize it's always been there, just waiting for us to adjust. In practice, this begins with the conscious decision to create spaces of silence in our day. Not the forced silence where we just wait for something magical to happen, but a living silence that allows us to connect with what's within and at the same time perceive the subtle touches that come from without. One of the most effective forms is contemplative prayer. Unlike prayers where we multiply requests and words, contemplation invites us to remain before God without rushing, letting our hearts speak louder than our lips. It's a moment when, often, nothing is said, yet everything is said. Daily moments of reflection are also essential. This could be 5 minutes at the beginning of the day, before picking up your phone, or at night, before bed. It's about closing your eyes and taking a deep breath, allowing your worries to subside and making way for listening. During this time, we don't seek to listen in the literal sense, but to feel the presence, to perceive that peace that, even amidst storms, insists on remaining. This peace is often the very sign that we are aligned with the calling. Another powerful path is prayerful Bible reading, also known as divine lesson. It's not a rushed read, but a deep dive. You choose a passage, read slowly, let the words resonate, and then ask yourself, what is this saying to me today? It's amazing how, at different moments in life, the same verse can reveal entirely new messages. This happens because it's not just an intellectual exercise, it's a dialogue, and it's in this dialogue that Mary, as mother, leads us to understand God's voice more clearly. Spiritual discernment, in turn, is what helps us filter the signals we receive. In a world where so many voices compete for our attention, discernment is essential to avoid mistaking noise for true direction. This discernment is built with practice and humility. Often, it comes with small confirmations: a word someone says to us, a passage we read, a situation that suddenly seems to fit as an answer. Mary teaches us to recognize these details, because she knows that God likes to act behind the scenes, without spectacle, but with precision. By cultivating these practices, we begin to realize that the silent call isn't something that happens sporadically, but a constant thread running through our day. It can be in a glance, a sense of comfort, or even that impulse to change a thought or attitude that we know isn't aligned with the truth. Listening to Mary, in this context, is much less about waiting for something extraordinary and much more about developing the sensitivity to notice the extraordinary in the ordinary. This shift in mindset transforms our relationship with time. We stop passively waiting for the right day and begin to live each day as an opportunity to fine-tune our connection with the divine. And when this connection is strengthened, it doesn't matter if we're in a sacred place or in the midst of a chaotic routine, the call arrives, because it's already engraved in our hearts. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is a direct link between hearing this silent call and the courage to follow it, even when it means changing course, abandoning certainties, and trusting in a path that has not yet fully revealed itself. Comment there. That makes sense to me. There are stories that, when we hear them, seem to carry more truth than any theological explanation. Stories of ordinary people who, in moments of complete emptiness and uncertainty, found unexpected strength simply by choosing to remain silent and trust. I remember a woman I met during a pilgrimage. She had lost her husband suddenly and was immersed in a grief that seemed endless. For the first few months, she desperately searched for answers. She wanted to understand why. She wanted clear signs that God was in control, but nothing came. Until, exhausted from trying, she decided to simply sit every day in the small chapel in her town, asking for nothing, saying nothing. At first, she said she felt nothing but emptiness. But over time, she began to notice a gentle, almost imperceptible peace taking hold of her heart. She hadn't received a direct message, but somehow, she knew she wasn't alone. This silence became her most faithful companion and, little by little, rebuilt her capacity to live. Another example comes from a young man who, after losing his job and facing family problems, found himself in a state of complete anxiety. He described how everything around him seemed to scream: bills to pay, expectations to meet, decisions to make. Each attempt to solve everything at once only increased the weight on his shoulders. That's when a friend told him about contemplative prayer. At first he resisted. He said that staying in silence was unproductive. But as he persisted, he began to notice something curious. In the hours following these moments of silence, decisions seemed to become clearer. Not that the problems disappeared, but he knew exactly which step to take, as if an internal compass began to work. There are also experiences that don't involve great tragedies, but which show how Mary's silence can shape our mindset. One young woman, for example, shared that she had always wanted to discern her vocation, whether to pursue religious life or build a family. She spent years waiting for an answer to emerge in an obvious way, like a conversation, a dream, or a prophecy. Nothing happened. However, by adopting a simple habit of prayerfully reading the Bible every morning, she noticed that, without realizing it, her heart began to naturally lean toward a certain path. Silence didn't bring her the answer in a single day. It gradually refined her vision until she realized what was already within her. These accounts reveal something we often don't immediately understand. Silence isn't an unproductive void. It's a space where transformation happens behind the scenes, so subtly that we only notice it when we look back. It's as if Mary is saying, I don't need to tell you everything now. I want to teach you how to walk with me, even without seeing the whole map. This approach completely changes the way we deal with challenges, because it frees us from the need to control everything. And the most interesting thing is that, in all these cases, silence didn't breed passivity. On the contrary, it brought clarity to action. The grieving woman found the strength to help others experiencing loss. The unemployed young man found the courage to start a small business that, over time, became his main source of income. The young woman seeking her calling pursued her path with serenity, unafraid of having made a wrong choice. This shows that silence doesn't paralyze, it guides, but in a way that respects each person's time for growth. And perhaps this is exactly what Mary is teaching us in Medjugorje. The 7 messages yet to be revealed may contain instructions for the future. But while we wait, she is training us to live in the present with faith and vigilance. She is teaching us to trust even without seeing, to keep the lamp lit even when the night seems long. Because, deep down, the greatest transformation happens in this interval between what we don't know and what we choose to do while we wait. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding how silence can generate such real and concrete changes in people's lives helps us realize that this is perhaps one of the most powerful forms of revelation that exists, and that it may be happening in your life right now, even if you haven't noticed it yet. Comment there. That makes sense to me. Mary's silence, when observed carefully, is not an empty interval, but a spiritual training ground. It subtly shapes us, like water that, over the years, carves stone. The difference is that, in this case, what is being polished is not the surface, but the interior. This is one of the most challenging truths to accept, remaining firm in faith, even without having all the answers, is not something that happens naturally. It is the result of preparation. And Mary, with her silent posture, leads us to this state. In our human mindset, we want to know everything before acting. We want guarantees before taking a step. But the logic of God and Mary is often the opposite. First the step, then clarity. This is how faith is strengthened, because it only grows when it is tested. Silence forces us to leave our comfort zone, to make decisions based not on a complete script, but on the confidence that the one who called us knows exactly where he wants to take us. This obedience isn't blind in the sense of alienated. It's conscious. It's the kind of obedience that arises from an intimate relationship, one in which you trust, not because you understand every detail, but because you know the character of the one leading you. Mary doesn't ask us for anything that isn't aligned with love and truth. When she remains silent, it's not to leave us lost, but so that we learn to sustain our faith with deeper roots. In times of tribulation, this lesson becomes even more vital. It's easy to be faithful when things make sense and the path is clear. The real challenge is remaining steadfast when the outlook is uncertain and there are no visible guarantees. It is at this point that silence becomes an ally, not an enemy, because it teaches us not to depend on external stimuli to keep the flame burning. Faith, then, ceases to be a reaction to circumstances and becomes a daily decision. This silent preparation also has a direct impact on our choices. When we're accustomed to moving only after clear answers, we risk paralyzing ourselves in the face of the unexpected. But when we practice obedience in silence, we develop a mindset capable of acting calmly even in uncertainty. It's like a soldier who, before facing battle, has already practiced every movement in training. At the decisive moment, he doesn't need to think about each step, he simply acts, because the discipline is already engraved in his memory. The impact of this on practical life is profound. People who learn to live this connection between silence, obedience, and preparedness don't give in to collective panic when crises arise. They don't rush to every new voice that appears, offering easy answers, because they recognize the importance of waiting for the right direction. This creates a kind of stability that becomes a beacon for others, a living testament that it is possible to weather storms with calm and confidence. And perhaps, this is one of the most important points Mary wants to show us in Medjugorje. The 7 unrevealed messages may contain specific instructions for difficult times. But while we wait, what is being formed in us is the ability to follow even without seeing. It's as if she were saying, if you learn to listen to me in silence, you will know how to recognize me when I speak. This is a preparation that is not limited to the spiritual. It affects our posture in all areas of life, because it makes us less reactive and more strategic, less anxious and more focused on what really matters. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because this silent discipline, which seems simple, actually carries a transformative power capable of changing not only our relationship with God, but also the way we face the great trials that are yet to come. Right there, I'm on this journey too. When we look at everything that has been said so far, we realize that Mary's silence is not just a detail of the apparitions, but a central element in how she prepares us. It is not empty. It is full of intention, meaning, and purpose. It is as if every moment she chooses not to speak is teaching us something about patience, vigilance, and trust. And if we stop to think about it, this is not just a spiritual teaching, it is a life lesson we can take into any situation we face. We live in a world where everything is immediate, where any question can be answered in seconds with a quick search, and where the idea of waiting seems outdated. But Maria shows us that some answers don't come quickly because they carry too much weight to be delivered unprepared. It's as if she's saying, I could tell you now, but I want you to be ready to live, not just know. And this completely changes the way we interpret waiting. It stops being a punishment and becomes a space for transformation. When we begin to see silence this way, we begin to value the process more than just the outcome. We realize that, deep down, each moment of uncertainty may be building something essential within US's strength to sustain faith even when circumstances try to tear it down. This shift in mindset prepares us not only to understand the messages that will come, but to live them coherently and profoundly. And this is precisely where the sense of community comes in, because this journey doesn't need to and shouldn't be walked alone. When we share our experiences, when we listen to how others are also learning to listen in the silence, we create a support network that strengthens everyone. It's as if each story is a piece of a larger puzzle that Maria is putting together. And when we put these pieces together, we can see more clearly the picture that's being formed. So, if this reflection spoke to your heart, if it resonated with your journey and awakened in you the desire to continue seeking, write in the comments, I choose to listen. This simple phrase becomes a symbol of commitment to me, but to your own journey and to this community that grows together, learning to value the silence that transforms. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is an aspect of choosing to listen that goes beyond conscious decision and enters the realm of personal revelations, where every detail of our life can become part of this listening. If you've made it this far, it's because this message resonated with you, and that makes me happy, because it means this reflection fulfilled its purpose, to provoke, inspire, and strengthen your journey. So, if you feel this content made a difference to you, subscribe to the channel so we can continue this journey of discovery and deepening together. This is how we can keep this exchange alive and continue exploring topics that truly touch the heart. Also, leave a comment saying, I'm with you until the end. That way, I'll know you were with me until the very end and that, in some way, this conversation resonated with you. And, of course, leave a like, because that helps this content reach others who might need that same word today. And, before you go, I'd like to invite you. There's a video right here that complements this topic and will help you see even more meaning in what we've just discussed. Click and stay with me there.